So go ahead. Yeah. Hi, everybody. So just to tell you how old I am, when I first started working, my first job was at the Chicago Board of Trade in Chicago. And we used to, it's where they set futures prices for commodities. And it wasn't done electronically then. You used to run to the pits with orders written out by hand, called in by the telephone. And on that basis, everybody would yell and scream and set prices. So we've come a long way since then, and we've got a much longer way to go. Listen, obviously, I think Ashish's and Muataz's introduction were excellent because they set the tone of the fundamental importance of agriculture and agribusiness in developing the economy. And for that reason, it's, of course, a strategic priority for IFC and the World Bank. Promoting sustained development and eliminating extreme poverty are not easy objectives, and they take everybody pulling on the same rope, and we're happy as a World Bank group that we can do that, both with the World Bank group, the IBRD, working primarily with the government and developing infrastructure and innovative ideas, and IFC working with the private sector. We also have another institution, MIGA, that is involved with providing political risk insurance, which helps investment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the IFC program, and I'm going to end that discussion of the program talking about more the digitization space, because we've done quite a bit there and we have quite a bit more to do. I think, so when we talk about kind of the IFC value proposition, the idea is in working with the private sector that we bring this perspective and this discipline that, that forces prices and economics that are sustainable. So when we work on a variety of projects, be them from a solar program to investing in a processing facility, we look to come up with commercial pricing that will create precedents in the market, will create standards that are sustainable, and will be replicable by the market in general. So we've had a couple of examples of that recently with IFC. We've invested with El Marai, the milk and fruit juice processing company, and we're proud of that investment, bringing sustainable standards, helping them grow their business. We've invested in packaging companies as well, and we've been with a printing company, a national printing company, and that investment has turned out well to develop that downstream market development growth within Egypt. And we've also invested in Wadi farms. Many of you get your chickens and your oil, olive oil, and other commodities from them. And I think what we've been able to bring is a package of discipline that helps these companies become more sustainable. So with Wadi Farms, for example, we brought this corporate governance discipline. It was 2 family-owned, unowned businesses, and we find that a lot in Egypt, where you have a family-run business. And in order to be bankable, we need to transform the shape of that company so that it's run, it's structured in a way that where the financial capability of the company is more apparent, where decisions are made in a transparent way. And we find by working with companies in this way, we help transform them. And that's kind of our value proposition. I mean, we also work with these companies to help involve more women in their jobs. So we have a number of engagements where, for example, we're working, and I'll talk about it in a minute when I go further down the value chain, we're working with a supermarket to help find ways of finding more jobs for women within the supermarket. So there are a lot of engagements in the private sector where you can bring kind of private sector discipline, but also bring advisory services where we can sort of make people think a little bit differently about the way they do things and make it more sustainable and more inclusive. Beyond the processing facilities that we've worked on, we're looking at, we feel one area in Egypt that's really underserved right now, and we're focusing on it, is in logistics support. So there need to be more warehouses, there need to be more cold storage facilities, better transport, better licensing regimes so warehouses can be built, better information technology so that people can come up with innovative solutions to spoilage problems. I think Egypt is losing, I think I saw the figure, 30% of the agribusiness products are lost in waste. And that's just silly. You have something that's produced, uses a lot of water, and to have it wasted is really, we need to tackle that. And one of the great things about the innovative, ideas that you'll hear later today are that everybody's focused on tackling that, and we need to sort of build a framework and a system where companies where young people that come up with these great ideas, so you don't have old guys like me running in with, orders to the Board of Trade, can come up with innovative ideas to how to solve these particular problems. So that's one area of focus. We're optimistic about some of the port developments in Egypt, and the government has been a strong partner in trying to develop those, so we hope to see those coming forward. We're also looking at another area that's a little bit underserved in Egypt, or quite a bit underserved, is commodity finance. So, in the United States, for example, if you have a company with a bunch of grain, you can take security over that grain. And if it becomes meal, you can take security over the meal. There are systems in place for ensuring that creditors are comfortable with risks associated with agribusiness products which transform from one thing to another. So I think we're working with the government. We have now a secure transaction registry, and I think that will help. But we need to continue to work to design solutions to sort of enable financing for these agribusiness commodities. I mean, we were talking to one commodity importer, and they said if we could come up with a finance solution, they would double their imports to Egypt. And so that's a dramatic impact. And by imports, we don't just mean that it could also double the exports. And the other issue there is the waste and spoilage issue, and trying to develop with technological solutions so that the commodities don't get wasted when they're being exported. So that's an area of focus for us, and we're working closely with the government to try to design solutions there. I think the last area in this list of kind of supply chain solutions that I'll talk about is marketing and sales. So as I mentioned earlier, we're working with a supermarket metro right now. They don't have very many women employees, and we've designed systems to create flexibility for working hours for women, for childcare, so that women can be a greater part of their workforce. And we're finding with a lot of these supply chain solutions, a lot of these ideas to help supermarkets, is by helping the supermarket, you help everybody in the supply chain, because it means that you can put more of these markets in more places. You have less spoilage. You have more goods being spread out further throughout the country. So we're finding that there are a lot of opportunities there in that particular space. Also, a lot of these companies are small. We worked with a small microfinance institution in Mansoura. And by virtue of providing very advisory assistance to them, they were able to provide small loans to very small little stores that sold goods to the local community, and that has having a big impact in terms of the growth. So we're looking at these various solutions. In terms of working with financial institutions, recently, in the last few years, IFC is seeing a lot of opportunities of working closely with financial institutions. And what we're doing is we're bringing our capital in ways of helping their financial base, but we're forcing them to consider ways of improving the way that they offer SME financing. We're working with them to, and a lot of them want to, but they need to be convinced of the value proposition of identifying women as good borrowers, and creating programs that speak to women and their needs. And so, it's a combination. You have to push a little bit and pull. We had a roundtable yesterday with a bunch of local banks and companies in the agribusiness sector. It got into a little bit of a shouting match, as agribusiness sector saying, banks, you don't listen to us, you don't create opportunities for us, you don't create enough capacity for us to borrow. And the bank's saying you don't provide us the information you need sometimes in order to make it possible for us to borrow. And that's where IFC comes in. We're trying to bridge this gap to find solutions so that we can get more lending in these important sectors. Lastly, the last area I'll talk about is what we're doing in the tech space. So IFC has been one of the leaders in investing in incubators and startup companies. So we invested in Flat 6 Labs, and that's been. My visit there was extraordinary. I got to meet with these young entrepreneurs who are coming up with amazing ideas. Not so many of the ones I heard were agribusiness type solutions, so that's why I think conferences like this are important, but many of them were rural solutions. So I remember one of them in particular, a lot of rural women don't have access to appropriate health care. They can't get to a doctor. And somebody's developing an app where you can get access to a doctor on your telephone, for basic problems, so that, some woman who lives in a rural area has immediate access to some basic solutions which can help improve the health of their child. That's genius. And I think there are many, many other aspects like this. I think we've invested in Fowry to help payment systems work, and that's a great thing. But we're also doing some advisory work in the solar space for solar pumping for irrigation. And the problem there is, or the solution there is that solar panels on irrigation pumps can dramatically reduce the cost of pumping water to the agricultural fields. The problem is that it takes a little bit longer for farmers to realize the value of that proposition. It takes 2 or 3 years for the purchase of the solar panel to pay off, whereas the diesel pump is much cheaper to buy to begin with. And so what we need to develop is technological solutions to allow payment to take place, to allow innovative ways for other investors to come in and maybe buy these pumps. But you need innovation, obviously. And that's the type of thing where I hope we can get some ideas here to help local farmers and to help the agribusiness sector grow. So that in general is kind of what we're looking at in Egypt. We think this is a crucial sector. We're committed to trying to come up with innovative ideas and working with the bank in doing so. So thank you very much.